The white sand of Agogo village shines under every morning sun, soft as powder beneath bare feet. Palm trees were dancing in gentle breeze, their fronds whispering hope over the wide river where canoes glided slowly. Women sang as they spread fish on wooden racks to dry, while children chased each other, leaving small footprints in the sand. In the middle of this lively village lived a boy named Oghenetega. Tega was only 17, slim, with sharp cheekbones and watchful eyes that always seemed to see more than others. His face carried a softness, but when he looked at people, it was as if he carried their troubles inside him. Unlike many boys of his age, Tega had a heart that served without asking. He fetched water for widows whose hands shook too much to carry heavy pots. He repaired broken fishing nets for old men whose eyes had grown dim. When storms pulled down palm fronds, he gathered them to patch neighbors' roofs before thinking of his own. One morning, a little girl fell into the river as she reached for floating firewood. The shouts of women rose in panic. But before anyone could think, Tega had jumped into the swirling water. His thin arms cut through the current, his eyes burning with focus. He pulled the girl back, coughing and crying, placing her safely in her mother's arms. That day, the villagers praised him, saying, "This boy's heart is pure. He thinks of others before himself." His face blushed, and he looked down shyly, his lips curving in a quiet smile. Yet for all the good he did, Tega often felt a weight pressing on his chest, as if his village was sinking into darkness. And his small acts were not enough. One evening, he was tired from helping a fisherman to carry baskets of tilapia. He rested under the old mango tree near the riverbank. The sun was sinking, painting the water in gold. His face looked weary, sand sticking to his sweaty skin, his eyes half closed from exhaustion. He hugged his knees, staring at the waves with longing, as though they might whisper answers. Then, slowly, his eyelids grew heavy. Sleep came, and with it, a silence so deep the world seemed to pause. And in that stillness, a voice broke through, not harsh, but deep like the river speaking. "I am the I am. I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. I have seen your heart, your passion, the struggles for your people. If they turn back to me, I will heal this land. Look beside you. My word is waiting." Tega's face twisted in shock even within the dream. Sweat formed on his forehead, his lips parted. His chest rose fast as if he was running. Suddenly his eyes opened. The night had settled and the crickets sang. Beside him, on the white sand, lay a worn-out Bible. Its cover was cracked. The pages bent as though many hands had touched it before. His hands shook as he picked it up. The moonlight spilled across his face, lighting up his wide eyes and trembling lips. He opened it, and the first words his eyes caught made his voice tremble aloud. "If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray, then will I hear from heaven and heal their land." As he read, his expression changed. The fear in his eyes melted into fire. His thin lips pressed together and his jaw grew firm. The boy who once served quietly now stood with the look of someone carrying a message greater than himself. The morning after the voice, Agogo village glowed fresh. Smoke rose from clay pots where women cooked yam and pepper soup. Children's laughter echoed as they chased goats across the white sand. Tega walked into the village square, holding the old Bible close to his chest. His face was serious, his lips tight. His eyes were burning with a fire nobody had seen in him before. His clothes were simple, a fist, his shirt torn at the shoulder. Yet he walked as if carrying a crown. He stood by the market tree, where the elders usually gathered, and lifted his voice. "Brothers, sisters, our land is sick, but God has not forgotten us. The I am that I am has spoken. If we turn to him, he will heal our farms, our river, our children's future." At first, people stopped to listen. Some women wiped sweat from their brows, their faces curious. A young man selling palm wine leaned on his calabash, his mouth half open. But then the laughter started. One man pointed at Tega and said, "Siam, yesterday you day men fishing net, today you don't turn prophet." His face twisted in mockery. Lips stretched wide, eyes were squinting as he clapped his hands. Another one added, "So now you got go send? You ain't no even fit by your own slippers?" His voice rose with scorn, and people around him nodded, some chuckling, some shaking their heads. Tega's eyes stung, but he didn't drop his gaze. His lips trembled slightly, but he forced his voice to stay steady. "This word is not mine. It is from the Lord who made the river and the sand beneath your feet. The elders frowned. Paakpona, the oldest, with wrinkles like folded cloth on his forehead, stepped forward. His eyes narrowed, lips thin, his staff tapping the ground. "Tega," he said, voice slow and heavy, "you are too young. These words are not for you. Stop before you bring shame on yourself." But Tega only clutched the Bible tighter, pressing it against his chest as if it was his heartbeat. "I cannot be silent." The market turned hostile. Someone threw a rotten orange. It burst against his shoulder, juice dripping down his torn shirt. A boy shouted, "Prophet Wayno gets you!" The crowd roared with laughter. The humiliation spread like fire. That evening, as he passed by the river, some fishermen pushed him aside. His body fell into the sand, his thin face scraping against the grains. He lifted his head slowly, his lips bleeding, his eyes clouded but still shining with stubborn faith. At home, his mother watched him return. Her wrapper was tied tight, her face tired from years of worry. When she saw the bruises on his cheek, her eyes filled with tears. She reached to touch his face, her hands shaking, lips quivering. "My son, why them they treat you like this now?" Tega forced a smile through swollen lips. "Mama, God has spoken. I cannot turn back." His mother pressed her head into her hands, rocked stool, her face twisted in silent sobs, while Tega's face turned upward, as if he was looking for strength beyond the stars. Days turned into weeks. Everywhere he went, he faced mockery. Some refused to buy fish from his family. Children followed him, clapping and singing songs of insult. One night, the rain came heavy, thunder rolling like drums, lightning splitting the sky. Tega sat alone in the hut, his knees pulled to his chest, Bible open on his lap. His eyes were red from unshed tears, his lips pale, while his whole body trembling from hunger and humiliation. His face was a picture of war inside, pain pulling his brows together, but hope refusing to die. The candle flickered, casting shadows on his cheekbones. He whispered, voice breaking, "Lord, why me? Why choose me when they all hate me? I only wanted to help." And in the thunder, deep and steady, came the same voice as before. "My strength is made perfect in weakness. Stand firm, Tega, for I, the I Am, will show them I sent you." Tega's eyes widened. Tears spilled down, washing the dust off his cheeks. His lips parted into a small, trembling smile. His face, though bruised, now glowed with peace. The rains had stopped, leaving the earth damp. The white sands of Aghogo stuck to bare feet as people moved about the marketplace. Tega, though bruised from mockery, refused to stop helping. One morning, as women pounded yam by the riverbank, a child slipped and fell into the shallow water. His little face broke into panic as he struggled. People shouted, but no one moved quickly. Tega, without thinking, dropped the bundle of firewood he was carrying, dashed forward and pulled the child out. The boy clung to his neck while coughing. Tega's face was wet with river water, but his eyes shone with relief. He pressed the boy gently into his mother's arms. The woman's eyes widened with surprise. She had once jeered at Tega in the marketplace, her lips sharp like a blade, but now her voice trembled. "Tega, thank you." Her face softened, her lips no longer mocking but quivering in shame. Still, as Tega turned to go, some men standing nearby sneered. One of them, arms crossed, lips twisted, said, "Na so prophet they do? To save small pickin' make we clap for am?" The others laughed, shaking their heads. Tega only smiled faintly. His lips curved upward, but his eyes carried sadness. Another day, the youth gathered by the palm wine joint. Laughter filled the air as calabashes clinked. Suddenly, one of them collapsed, his face pale, sweat dripping down like rain. People panicked, shouting. Tega rushed over, knelt by the young man, lifted his head gently onto his lap, and fanned him with a palm leaf. His thin hands trembled, but his eyes were steady. He fetched water, pressing it to the man's lips. Slowly, the boy coughed and opened his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, weak but alive. Some clapped Tega on the shoulder, their faces soft with gratitude. But others turned away, muttering, "Don't be fooled. He just wants attention." Tega's lips pressed tight. His jaw clenched for a moment. But then he whispered to himself, "It is not for me. It is for God." Yet even with his kindness, the rejection deepened. One afternoon, as he carried a basket of cassava to help a widow, a group of young men blocked his path. Their faces were hard, lips were curled in disdain. "Prophet," one sneered. His eyes were flashing with mischief. "Carry our own load, too." They threw heavy firewood on top of the basket. Tega staggered, his thin shoulders bending under the weight. Sweat ran down his face, his lips trembling with strain. Still, he said nothing. He carried everything to the widow's hut, set it down gently, and wiped his brow. The widow, old and frail, placed her shaky hand on his shoulder. Her face, lined with years of sorrow, glowed with gratitude. "My son, you are light to me," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. Tega's lips curved into a soft smile, though his eyes carried both pain and peace. One season, darkness came upon the land. Crops withered before harvest, the river shrank, and the drums of joy in Agogo fell silent. The villagers gathered at the square, faces heavy with despair. The elders shook their heads. The priests muttered prayers, but no answer came. It was then that young Tega stepped forward. His voice was calm, yet it carried like the talking drum. "Let us not curse the land," he said. "Let us change ourselves, for the earth gives back what we put into it." The villagers murmured. What could a boy know? But Tega's words clung to their hearts like dew on morning grass. He began to work the barren fields with his bare hands. Day after day he tilled, planted, and sang to the soil. Some laughed at him, some pitied him, but a few, just a few, joined him. Weeks passed, and green began to return where Tega's hands touched. First, a sprout, then a stalk, and later, fields that whispered hope again. The laughter of children returned, and the drums of Agogo found their rhythm. Yet not all were pleased. Among the villagers were young men whose hearts were heavy with envy. "Who is this boy that the people now follow?" they asked. "Shall a child lead us while we, grown men, are ignored?" And so they plotted to silence him. One evening, as Tega returned from the fields, they cornered him by the riverbank. "Leave this village," they warned, "or misfortune will find you." But Tega, with eyes calm as the still river, replied, "I cannot leave, for this is my home. If misfortune must come, let it come. But know this, only light drives away darkness." Their hearts trembled at his words, though anger still burned in them. They pushed him into the river and fled. But the river, which had heard his songs and prayers, cradled him gently and bore him back to the shore. When the villagers found him, wet but unharmed, they marveled. By now, Agogo village was divided. Some whispered with awe, "This boy might be truly sent." Their faces were thoughtful, their brows knitted and lips pursed in wonder. Others muttered angrily, "He is deceiving us. Nothing good will come." Their faces tightened, eyes narrow, lips curled with bitterness. An elder stepped forward, his staff trembling in his hand. "This boy is innocent. The spirits themselves defend him." The villagers bowed their heads in shame, and the young men who accused him could not lift their eyes. From that day, few among the people who had repentance no longer called him Tega. They called him Oghenetega, the one God strengthens, the changer of hearts. Yet Tega never grew proud. Each evening he still sat by the river, dipping his toes in the water, whispering, "God, keep me small, even as you make me great." And Tega, he walked on, thin but strong, his face calm, his Bible always pressed to his chest. His eyes often lifted to the sky, searching and waiting. The sky darkened one afternoon when no one expected rain. The air turned heavy, pressing down on the white sands of Agogo. Palm trees swayed restlessly, their fronds rattling like warning drums. Goats bleated nervously, and even the river carried a strange murmur as if it sensed something greater was coming. Villagers looked up, faces twisted in unease. Wrinkles deepened on elders' brows. Lips tightened as mothers called their children close. Suddenly, thunder rolled across the heavens like the pounding of 1,000 drums. Lightning split the sky, bright and sharp, making eyes squint and mouths open in gasps. Then the rains fell, not gentle drops, but sheets of water that swallowed huts, washed away yam mounds and sent people screaming. Shrines by the riverbank cracked and tumbled. The idols that had stood for years lay broken, their faces washed away by the angry flood. Men who once mocked Tega ran frantically, their eyes wide with terror, lips quivering with fear. In the middle of the chaos, Tega appeared. His clothes were soaked, clinging to his thin frame, his hair plastered to his forehead. But his face, oh, his face that was steady, calm, and burning with purpose. His lips were tight but firm, his eyes sharp like fire, fixed on heaven. He tied ropes and waded through the rising water, pulling children to safety, lifting an old man onto his back, guiding women to higher ground. Every step was heavy, but he did not stop. His arms shook with effort, veins visible on his neck, but his eyes never lost focus. Some villagers stood frozen watching him. Their faces were masks of shock, brows lifted, mouths open. A woman clutched her chest, whispering, "Is this the same boy we mocked?" When the water rose higher and the cries grew louder, Tega fell to his knees in the flood. His lips trembled, his voice shook, but his eyes glowed with desperate faith. Passionate, praying tone. "O Lord," he cried, voice echoing over the storm, "you promised to heal this land. Show them you are the God above all gods. Let them see your hand today." Rain beat down on his bent back. His face lifted upward, streams of water mixing with tears on his cheeks. His lips moved faster, his whole body shaking with prayer. Then suddenly, silence followed. The thunder stopped. The rain cut off as if someone had closed a door in the sky. The clouds broke open and sunlight streamed down, bathing the village in gold. The river calmed, its angry waves sinking into peace. The people stood frozen. Their eyes widened, lips parted in disbelief. One man dropped to his knees, his face pale with shock. A woman covered her mouth, tears running down her cheeks. Children clung to their mothers, their little faces glowing with awe. The elders, once stern and proud, lowered their heads. Paakpona, his wrinkled face wet with tears, stepped forward. His lips trembled as he spoke. "Tega, we see now. Truly, your God is greater." Slowly, the villagers gathered around Tega, kneeling in the white sand. Their faces carried shame, but also hope. Their brows, once furrowed in mockery, now bent in humility. Their lips, once sharp with insults, now whispered prayers. Tega stood among them, Bible pressed to his chest as usual. His face glowed in the sunlight, his eyes soft yet firm, lips curving into a humble smile. He raised his hands slightly, not in pride, but in surrender. With a steady voice, he said, "God has shown mercy. Let us turn from our old ways and he will dwell with us." A murmur of agreement spread, soft at first, then strong. Tears fell. Hands lifted. Hearts shifted. Agogo had changed. The morning after the storm, Agogo woke to a new light. The air was fresh, carrying the smell of wet palm fronds and clean earth. The white sand sparkled under the sun, washed smooth by the flood. Birds returned to the trees, their chirping soft and joyful. The villagers gathered in the square, their faces calm and humble. The same mouths that once mocked were now quiet, waiting. Children who once jeered sat cross-legged, their wide eyes fixed on Tega. Women carried babies on their backs, their lips pressed together in respect. Men who had once laughed at him now bowed their heads. Their strong shoulders bent. Tega stood before them, barefooted on the white sand. His clothes were still worn, but his face shone. His eyes carried no pride, only peace and deep love. His lips curved into a gentle smile as he lifted his Bible. "My people," he said, his voice steady but soft, "we have seen the hand of God. Let us live differently. Let us walk in his ways, and his light will remain with us." The elders nodded. Paakpona, once his loudest critic, placed his hand on Tega's shoulder. His wrinkled face softened, his lips trembling as he spoke. "You are young but filled with wisdom. From today, henceforth, we shall listen to you." Tears welled in Tega's eyes, but he blinked them back, his lips parting in a humble smile. Days turned into weeks, and the changes were clear. Men no longer carried idols to the shrines. The shrines lay abandoned, the idols broken by the flood. Instead, families gathered by the riverbank, lifting songs of thanksgiving. Women sang in soft harmonies, their voices rising with joy. Children clapped and danced, their little faces glowing with laughter. The marketplace changed too. Where once there was mockery, now there was kindness. Faces that had once twisted with insults now bent in smiles. A woman who had once thrown fish water at Tega pressed a calabash of palm wine into his hand, her lips curving in gratitude. Farms flourished again. The yams grew bigger, the cassava stronger, and the river flowed clean and full of fish. The land looked as though it had been healed. Years passed, and Tega grew older. His frame filled out, though he remained simple in dress. His hair carried streaks of gray, but his face was calm, always lit by a quiet joy. His eyes still carried fire, but now softened by wisdom. His lips often bent into a peaceful smile. And when he spoke, people listened with respect. He never sought to be called king or chief. He lived in his small hut, walked barefoot on the white sand, and helped as he always had in mending nets, carrying loads for widows, rescuing children by the river. The only difference was that now no one mocked him. They honored him. One evening, as the sun sank low and painted the river gold, the whole village gathered. Drums beat softly, women danced, and children sang. "We are grateful, O Lord. We are grateful, O Lord, for what you have done for us. Hallelujah, we are grateful, O Lord." Tega stood at the edge of the square, tears brimming in his eyes. He lifted his hands slightly, his lips trembling with emotion. His eyes looked to the glowing sky, his heart whispering thanks. The camera of the mind would pan across the faces, elders smiling, mothers dancing, children laughing, all transformed. Finally, it would rest on Tega, his humble face shining with joy as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the village bathed in peace. And so it was that Oghenetega, once mocked and humiliated, became the changer of his people. Through selfless love and unshakable faith, he turned their story from shame to glory, from darkness to light. And Agogo village never remained the same again. However, the story of Oghenetega spread beyond Agogo village, carried on the wind, told by firesides sung in markets. The boy who changed sorrow to joy, who carried others' burdens as his own, became a light to many. And it is said, even now, when kindness appears where bitterness once lived, the spirit of Oghenetega, the changer, still walks among us.